Hello and welcome to my channel. I am going to go more or less straight in with the Kate Bush song choice today. We'll talk about the devil, and I hope when I do that it's clear why I've done that. I think the song that I've chosen for me personally and how I see the devil card is a really, really good fit. I think it is one of those cards which comes with a lot of baggage, so we have to sort of find our own relationship with it. So maybe just before I turn this card over, I'll just say which song I almost chose but decided against. And it would have been, like, I almost chose Get Out of My House. And because of, as I've said in a previous video, when I first heard that album, so I'll just put it so you can see it, I was 16, I was in the house on my own, the fuse on the lights or something went, so the turntable was still turning, and this is the very first time I've heard this album, this music was playing, and I'm pretty sure it was Get Out of My House that she was playing, which really spooked me and my friend. So I had a very intense experience of this album, and probably why it's been, one of my favourite albums ever since. It has got a really dark energy. When I have chosen a card for Get Out of My House, because it's such a great song, I did have to choose one for it. And then I'll explain a bit more of how I interpret that song. But I think the one I've chosen for the devil is a little bit more nuanced, because we've got to remember that we've got positive and negative sides to each card. And I didn't want to give a sense of the devil as something you have to push away. Because sometimes the devil can be a warning against addiction and stuff, but it can also be an encouragement, a nudge. So I wanted to show the positive sides of the devil as well in what I talk about, or how it's more nuanced than maybe we think. I don't know. Anyway, let's go to the song choice, and then I think I can be able to explain it a bit clearer. So this is from The Red Shoes. It is the Red Shoes song, and there was a film made based on this story as well. I think inspired by a 1948 film called The Red Shoes, which very much influenced Kate Bush. I'm gonna, though, now bring in a new layer in, which is to this fairy story. So it's a traditional fairy story, and it's in Hans Christian Andersen stuff. But my favourite interpretation of The Red Shoes as a story, as an old story, it predates Hans Christian Andersen. It's been, and in lots of different cultures, this whole idea is this interpretation from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and I absolutely love this book. The only thing that I dislike about it a little bit is the title, is the because I don't think it's gendered. I think this can apply to anyone. This book, there's so much riches, but it's very much about a creative life and what might prevent us living a creative life, I think, and I think there's that aspect in this song as well. So in this book, and I'm just going to quickly read that, and then I'll just briefly talk about what Clarissa Pinkola Estes says about The Red Shoes as a story and maybe its deeper meaning. She talks about the feral woman. So I'm just going to say what she says about the feral woman, because that sets it up really, really nicely and puts a different perspective, I think, on the devil card. So, right. So she says, in common usage, a feral creature is one who was once wild then domesticated, and who has reverted back to a natural or untamed state once again. I postulate the feral woman as one who was once in a natural psychic state, that is, in her rightful wild mind, then later captured by whatever turn of events, thereby becoming overly domesticated and deadened in proper instincts. When she has opportunity to return to her original wildish nature, she too easily steps into all manner of traps and poisons. Because her cycles and protective systems have been tampered with, she is at risk in what used to be her natural wild state. No longer wary and alert, she easily becomes prey. And I think in the line, the cross and the curve, that Kate Bush kind of plays that role of someone a little bit too innocent and too trusting. Now, what I find interesting about, so in the story that is told in this book, in the red shoes, the little girl makes herself some red shoes herself first. That's what happens. They're beautiful to her. They become more and more grubby and tatty, and because she's poor, you know, they're like something you value yourself, but other people don't value. But they're essential to her. They're her expression of her creativity. They are her authentic self, if you like. Then the little girl is adopted by this rich elderly woman who turns her nose up at these shoes. It's part of the rags that need to be burnt when the little girl is adopted, and she's made more respectable, and she goes to church, and it's very much now all about what the community and society think and how she needs to conform to those expectations. But of course, the part of her, if you like, the part that maybe represents the devil in a sense, the part that is her wild, non-conforming self, the part that other people maybe feel a little bit threatened by, that actually doesn't go away by doing that. What happens is that wild nature gets suppressed. So that when the little girl is offered these red shoes, these magic shoes that are actually going to entrap her and are like an addiction, really, a form of escapism, that she is vulnerable, she's enticed by that, because there is part of her that still wants to be creative, still wants to express, still wants to return to who she was before she became this compliant, domesticated little girl. But she makes the wrong choices. She makes the self-destructive choices. And then that is when she gets in this awful, it's really dark, isn't it? This idea of these shoes that are dancing the girl rather than the girl dancing herself. And that she can't escape. She can't, she's in that trap of, now she's and I think this can happen quite a lot. We're too constricted. So we rebel, but we rebel in a way that is also self-sabotage, that is also self-destructive. And I think that is the lesson about the devil, that you can't really escape that. You can't fully domesticate yourself, actually. There is inside you, there is that lizard brain, there is that instinct, there is that creativity. We need to live with it rather than just lock it away. And I think that is the story of the devil, and about coming into that authenticity. The more and more I do this tarot set, when I first started it, I think, as I said, I thought it was about getting to know the tarot more. Then I thought it was about Kate Bush as a creative role model. And it's still all about those things. But I've noticed on a personal level also, it is about me being a late diagnosed autistic and coming into how, reflecting how I feel about masking. The devil for me is all about, there's a card, is about masking, is about when I am not, almost, I am betraying myself and betraying my own needs and stuff in order to fit in. It's interesting, the other thing that I was just going to quickly say, it's interesting why Kate Bush herself has focused on this fairy tale. Of course, we don't know, we can only guess what has really attracted her to it. It's interesting, I think it's an interesting question. That is one of the questions to ask, isn't it? Which fairy tale particularly appeals to you? And what does that say psychologically about you? I mean, Kate Bush is a dancer and a performer, so I can see that attraction. But I also wonder if it is also something, and I know my last video was about burnout, but it also seems to be about burnout, that story as well, doesn't it? Maybe about the first few years of when she was famous and feeling that she was having to perform for other people and she was on this treadmill and she couldn't get off. That is, of course, all my own guesswork. I don't know. But I think it's a good match for this card. As always, if you've got any other ideas or, or if you've got any opinions on Get Out of My House, let me know. And thanks as always for watching. Goodbye.